Welcome everybody to TridiumTalk on the Asset Manager and Enterprise SMA. My name is Sandra Natella. I am the Manager of Customer Support here at Tridium, and I'll be walking you through a brief presentation, and then we'll go into a live demonstration of the new Asset Manager application and the Enterprise SMA. So managing your assets just got easier. So you can access the Asset Manager through your Niagara community credentials, and it's a single sign-on. The Asset Manager view allows you to look at your assets in a centralized and brand-agnostic way. So you can look at all of your license details, including the brand, the model, the maintenance expiration date, the license version, options, and there are also some custom fields. There's also enhanced search capabilities within the new UI. In addition, there is a module called Enterprise Software Maintenance Agreement that is available for end-user accounts to synchronize their maintenance expiration dates on all of their registered assets. So one transaction can renew all of the maintenance on all licenses in the enterprise. So why software maintenance, and why is it important to keep that current? First and foremost is security updates. So Tridium is constantly working to keep the Niagara framework as secure as possible and adding cyber defense ease-of-use features like the Niagara Security Dashboard. In addition, access to our newest technology. So as Tridium releases new software, for instance, upcoming release of 4.8, you can take advantage of all of those improvements, the connectivity options, and the enhanced productivity. And then there is backup as a service. So in order to take advantage of backup as a service, you need an active and current software maintenance agreement on your license so that when disaster strikes, your data is safe and secure. So let's do an overview of the Asset Manager. So getting started is pretty simple. First, you need to sign up as a user in the Niagara community, and you can do that by going to niagaracommunity.com. Once you are a registered Niagara community member, you can register your organization by clicking on the Get Started link in the blue banner. This will pull up an online form, which you will complete, agree to the terms and conditions, and click Submit. Once you've done that, you'll notice that the Asset Manager link at the top of the screen appears. When you go into the Asset Manager, you'll be brought into the home screen, which is the Asset List view. This provides you with a list of all of the assets that you have registered, along with various information. For instance, your maintenance end dates, the project that you have assigned it to, who the service provider is, status, the license version, and a lot more information. In addition, you can also view alerts from this home screen. So registering devices. There are two ways that you can register an asset. One is through a single device, basically just enter the host ID, or you can register multiple devices using a bulk upload feature. So you would basically download the CSV template, enter all of your host IDs on that template, and then upload it to the Asset Manager. One of the newest features in the Asset Manager is tag definition. So this feature allows you to create a dictionary of tags, and you can assign these tags to your assets. Tags are defined by three types. One is a marker, which is simply a label, a string, or a number, which are values. The My Organization module within the Asset Manager allows you to manage your company information, your user information, and also your affiliations. Organization affiliations are links between end user and service provider organizations, indicating that a business relationship exists, and it allows both organizations to view and manage their asset details. It also allows access to view your cloud backups. Enterprise SMA. This is a new module in the Asset Manager application that is for end users. So the end users can register their assets and request an Enterprise SMA proposal for those registered Niagara assets. The minimum required for enrollment is 5 assets, and discounts are available for enterprises with 25 or more enrolled assets. It's pretty simple to get your proposal generated. It's just a few steps. Step 1 is to select those assets that you have registered in Asset Manager and select those for enrollment. Step 2 is selecting your enterprise maintenance renewal period. The duration choices are 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year. In addition, you will select your maintenance start date, and you can select up to 45 days in the future. And this is the date that you would expect your service provider to have placed the order for your SMAs. And then lastly, you will select an ESMA or an enterprise SMA provider. This is the Niagara partner who will actually be managing your enrollment and placing the order on your behalf. So the enterprise software maintenance provider you select will present you with a proposal for your software maintenance agreement. After acceptance of the proposal and the order is processed, the SMA for the enrolled assets will be renewed for the specified period. And basically, all of your SMA expiration dates will now all be in sync. So if you need any help with the Asset Manager or the Enterprise SMA program, feel free to contact your local Tridium customer support team, whether you are in Americas, Europe, or Asia Pacific. And you can also join the Backup as a Service group in the Niagara community. So now let's get into the live demonstration. So as you can see, I'm on the Niagara community homepage. I'm logged in, and I have the Asset Manager link at the top, which tells me that I am already registered for Asset Manager. If I were not registered for Asset Manager, I would not see that link, and therefore I would click on the Get Started button, and that would bring up the registration form, which I would then complete and submit. So now let's click on the Asset Manager to bring up the application. So it defaults to the Assets View list. So you'll see here across the top that there are 5 modules: Assets, Device Registration, Tag, Organization, Enterprise SMA. In the Assets View list, it shows all of the assets that I have currently registered. You'll also notice that there are some action buttons up here. So the first one, you can see that I can actually pin commands, I can add a new project, I can export the list, or I can group my assets. So pinning a command. Let's say that I wanted to have tag assets as part of my action list. I could select it and say OK. So now tagging assets is part of my command list. In addition, if I wanted to look at the asset details, over on the right-hand side there's a drop-down box. If I click on it, one of the options is Details. When I click on the details, it brings up the asset details, including the host ID, the service provider, the brand, the model, the project that I assigned it to, the license version, SMA, current expiration date, and whether or not it's already currently enrolled in an SMA program. I can edit some of the information on the screen. For instance, if I click the Edit button, it'll allow me to edit. I could change the project to one of the other project folders that I've already created. Or I could change the location. So I've indicated that this particular asset's located at this address, and I could change that location. I could also add notes. One of the other action buttons up at the top is called Columns. So I can actually select which columns I want to display when I come into the Asset View list. So let's say I did not want to see Enterprise SMA status. I could simply remove it, and I could click OK. The next time I log in to Asset Manager, it will remember the settings that I've already selected. Filters is another one. So let's say I had a list of assets, and I only wanted to filter on the Q and X ones. So I could say I want to filter on where host ID contains Q and X. Say OK, and you'll notice it filtered out all of my Win or my PC licenses. I can go back, I can remove that, and say OK. You'll also notice that I have Change Project pinned, so I could select one of my assets, just simply click that icon, and I could change my project. So I could change it from Building 1, let's say, to Building 2. Let's go into device registration next. So there are 2 ways that you can register a device: single device registration or multiple device registration. So single device registration simply means that you type in or copy and paste your host ID into that field to register that device. And so let's do that. So now you can see that it's pulling up the asset details. It's telling me who the service provider is, which is the license owning organization in Niagara Licensing. And now I can enter an address. So let's say I wanted to say that this device was on Peachtree Drive, and it was in Atlanta, Georgia. I can also select a project. I can either start typing in a project name and it will select one of the projects already created in the Asset Manager, or I can actually create a new project on the fly. So let's say I wanted to create a project called Tagline. When I click Add Device, it'll ask me if I want to create that new project tag. I say yes. Click Add Device. Once I click Add Device, a pop-up message appears indicating that the organization affiliation request with the service provider, in this case Tridium USA, is pending approval, but the asset will be registered anyway. Click Continue. The next message is indicating that the asset has been partially registered and that the business affiliation request is pending with the service provider Tridium. So a pending or partially registered device just simply means that as the user, I cannot view my backups from the Asset Manager application. I'm just going to click Done, and my asset has now been added. You can see here from the project tagline. So let's go back to device registration. Now let's try multiple devices. So now let's say I want to load 10 devices into my Asset Manager, and I didn't want to have to do them manually one at a time. I can download the template by simply clicking Download. And then I can select that file once I've populated it with my asset details. And click Continue. The message I am receiving is that the 3 host IDs that were in my upload file were successfully added and they are partially registered. So I am going to click Confirm. I can tell from the ones that I just loaded that they don't have any project. So if I wanted to, because I have project pinned, I could include a project name on those assets. So let's get into the next module, which is Tag Definitions. So Tag Definitions is basically where you can create a dictionary. You can see that I already have 2 dictionaries created, one for equipment and one for location. My equipment tags are markers, which are labels. My location tags are strings, and I have one for city and one for region. So let's go back to my asset view list, and I'm going to tag this latest asset that I just registered. And it is equipment, and this time it's a chiller, and I'm going to add it. But I also want to indicate where it's located, and I can indicate which city it's in, and it's in Atlanta. And I can also indicate what region it's in, and it's in the South. Add it, click OK. And my tag was added. Another little tidbit, up at the top of the column, if I drop down this box, it asks me, or it allows me to wrap the text. So now I can see all of my tag details. So tags can come in handy when you want to restrict user access to certain assets based on some preset criteria. So let's say you wanted to restrict access to your users based on regional boundaries. You could set up that user and restrict their access to a tag where region equals South, for instance. When that user logs into Asset Manager and goes to their asset details list, they will only see the assets with the region equal to South. Organization. Organization is the information on your account. So it provides you your account name, who's the primary contact, and the primary email on the account, as well as the company address information. You can also edit this information as well by clicking the Edit button. Users. This is where you add users. So as you can see here that I do have a user in my organization, and I have that user tagged with region equal Midwest. This means that when John logs into my Asset Manager account, John will only be able to see the assets tagged as region Mid-Atlantic. To add a new user, you just click on the Add button and you type in their name. So when I start entering the email address, you'll notice here that because the domain of this email ID is different than the primary user on my account, it's giving me a role option of Enterprise Manager. So this allows you, as an end user, to assign somebody outside of your organization to manage your assets and enroll them in the Enterprise SMA program. If I were at Gmail, you notice that the roles that appeared are different. Asset Manager is assuming, because the email domain is the same as the primary contact on the account, that I'm part of the Nutella Solutions organization. Therefore, it's giving me the option to be a device manager or an organization manager. You can also disable users from this view. So if I clicked on John's name, the drop-down action box all the way to the right will allow me to disable him, edit his user role, or also add a tag or add an additional tag. Okay, let's get into the Enterprise SMA module. This module is available and visible only to end-user accounts. So you'll notice on the left-hand side are a list of all of the assets that I have registered in Asset Manager. In order to select those assets to generate the proposal for an Enterprise SMA, I can either individually select them or I can select all by clicking on the box next to Host ID. And then just simply select Select, and they move over to Selected Assets. You can see the count is 8. You can select a minimum of 5, and anything less than 5, you will not see the next button. It will be grayed out. The next choice that I need to make is the duration. So I have a choice of 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years. So for this proposal, I'm going to generate one for 3 years. Now I need to indicate the start date. So when do I want this SMA period to begin? I can select a date up to 45 days in the future. This is basically the date that I expect the order to be placed in Niagara Licensing to start my SMA period. So I'm going to select the date of August 11th, and I'm going to say Next. Now it's going through a validation. It's basically telling me that I've selected 8, and all 8 of them are eligible. You can see the list, and I can view the asset details, the validation details. And I can click Next. You can see here that I selected 8 and all 8 were eligible for renewal. If any of my assets were not eligible, in the validation details, I would see a message that basically told me if it was not eligible and why it was not eligible. It looks like all of my assets are eligible, so I'm going to click Next. Next, I need to select a service provider. And I have 2 options. I can either select the service provider from the drop-down list that's displayed, or I can select one or indicate that my service provider is not listed. So the service providers that will appear in the list are the license-owning organizations in Niagara Licensing. If I'm trying to enroll 8 assets, and 3 of those assets are under one service provider, and the balance of them are under another service provider, I will see both service providers listed, and I can select one of them to act on my behalf. Or let's say I don't want either one of them, I can say my service provider is not listed, in which case a form will appear that you can fill out and provide information relative to who that service provider is. You would fill in this form information, company name, the contact email address, phone number, company address information, etc. Or let's just say I do want to select Tridium to be my service provider. In that case, this is telling me that a copy of the proposal request will be sent to sandranutella1@gmail.com, which is the primary contact on my account. And I can also indicate if I want additional recipients to receive a copy of that proposal. And so since I selected Tridium as my service provider, I want to send a copy of that proposal to Sandra at Tridium so she can get started on it. I'm going to click Next. And now I get into the terms and conditions. In addition, before I click those terms and conditions, there is a part summary and view license details. So at this time, I can do a quick review again of the information. Once I'm satisfied, I click the Accept Terms and Conditions and submit my request. So my request has been submitted. I created it today on June 27th. It's valid until August 11, 2019, which is the date I selected in Step 2. And the expiration period would be 2022, because remember, I selected 3 years. I have a total of 9 part numbers and a grace period of 1,696 days. I can download the part summary, and I can also download the license details from the proposal that I just generated. So now what happens when that proposal is generated and your service provider is trying to convert that into an order? Your service provider will go into Niagara licensing, and there is a new module under the orders called Enterprise SMA. This is where the service provider will see a copy of the proposal that you generated out of Asset Manager. And you would search for that proposal. So here's the proposal that I just generated, Proposal 225. So as the service provider, I can see that Proposal 225 is from Niagara Solutions. That's the end user who's requesting this, along with when it was generated, the validity dates, the year, and the renewal period. You can also view the part list. So these are the SMA parts that need to be purchased and in what quantities in order to bring all of these licenses up to a common SMA end period. Once I'm satisfied and I have the order from my customer, I can simply click Place Order, enter my PO number, confirm my PO number, enter any order notes, confirm my item list and my host IDs, and then process my cart. Now all of these assets have been enrolled in the Enterprise Software Maintenance Agreement, and they will all synchronize to a common end date. And if I go look at one of these licenses, I will see that expiration date is now August 11, 2022. You'll also notice that there is a new field that populated on my license view called Enterprise. And the enterprise for this asset is Niagara Solutions. So this is the end of this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you find the Asset Manager tool helpful in managing your Niagara assets. Thank you very much.